Welcome to the Show Day podcast for July 8th, 2019. Last night, we had one of our first premier events of the season on the DCI Tour schedule, DCI Menomonee in Menomonee, Wisconsin. Again, interesting results come out of that. I'll break that all down, plus take a look ahead to tonight's two shows. The cores that have been touring in the Southeast moved to Valdosta, Georgia, and the cores in the Pacific Northwest now moved to the Tri-Cities area of Washington. That plus more on today's Show Day podcast. DCI Menomonee last evening. 3 open class cores were in attendance: Legends, River City Rhythm, Colt Cadets. They finish in that order. The Legends win general effect with a 25 even, a reminder that is out of 40 overall. River City Rhythm second with a 22.7 and Colt Cadets a 20.8. If you move over to visual now, you see River City Rhythm does close the gap a little bit with the Legends. If River City Rhythm wants to climb up the rankings, let's say maybe top 5, I'd say that would be realistic. Visuals where they're going to be kind of coming from. 4/10 back in visual proficiency, only 1.1 back in analysis, and then they actually win color guard by a pretty big margin, 6/10. They don't win overall visual because those other margins are just so big. Legends win with a 17.2 to a 16.75, and the Colt Cadets are extremely far back. They're at a 15.3, so all 3 of those scores all within 2 points in visual, which not necessarily is good for the Legends, but I'd say it's a step in the right direction for the other 2 open class groups in visual. In music, everything kind of goes as is. You see River City Rhythm coming close to the Legends in percussion, only a 10th off, but not really a whole lot other stuff happening here. They do narrow the margin a little bit more, though. 18.55 in music for the Legends, 17.9 for River City Rhythm, and 15.5 for the Colt Cadets. Overall totals at this one, the Legends score does go down a little bit from the previous night. They're at a 60.75 after last evening, but a reminder, this time last year they were still down in the mid 50s. So to now be they've already broken 60. They're heading in the right direction. It looks to be a good year for Legends. And seeing this show on Flow Marching yesterday, they're better than last year, or at least will be better. Really just a well-designed show all around. It's kind of exactly what you need to win open class in the current moment if you're not going to use all the innovations of costumes, props, etc. Yes, they do have the props, but a little bit of absence of costumes, which, if you do it correctly, is not a bad thing, and they are doing it correctly. They're already scoring above Genesis, above Seattle Cascades. I'm sure they'll come close to maybe Surf or Music City come championships. So if I'm the Legends, I feel confident that you are a semi-finalist core this season after missing by so close of a margin last season. River City Rhythm, they do seem to be going in the right direction with this 57.35. Last year at this point they had a 55.75, so not as big of an increase as the Legends, but still a good increase. And then the Colt Cadets at a 51.6. Not necessarily a gain, they're actually down a little bit from this point last year, but the show does definitely seem a little bit better designed, and it seems designed to what the strengths of the ensemble are. On the world class side of things, we did not see any placement shakeups. A few increases, decreases in margins was really the big story here. First, let's take a look at general effect. I'm not going to go into each judge. I'm just going to go over the overall general effect. Bluecoats up by 0.5 on Santa Clara Vanguard. That margin is down. I believe it was 6 or 7 tenths in the previous 2 nights. And now that's 0.5, yes, Vanguard's coming back, I guess you could say. but they've still got a long way to go because they lost more points along the line here than they did the previous nights. So, what's the big thing to take away from the Bluecoats and Vanguard in general effect? Well, the Bluecoats are already at a 34 out of 40. It does seem like this year is going to be one of these 98-point years, where Vanguard did get to a 98 last year, but we've seen in years past, 2015, yes, 2016, 2017, those scores were not up in the 98s, they were in the 97s. I think this year we're heading up to the 98s once again. The Cadets, third in general effect, they finished 6/10 ahead of the Blue Stars there. That's fine for them to keep that advantage over the Blue Stars. Blue Stars fourth then at 30.9, 3/10 above the Crossmen. Crossmen then are largely above the Colts. Colts at 28.9, they tie with the Academy in general effect. That helps bring that margin down between those two, and then the Madison Scouts at a 27.9. Over in visual, everything goes as is in proficiency. Analysis, really just the visual caption altogether, the Crossmen are very strong in. If you look at visual analysis, 3/10 up for the Bluecoats. Then you go down to second is Vanguard, third is the Crossmen at a 16 even. Fourth is the Blue Stars, fifth is the Cadets, who are actually 4/10 behind the Crossmen in visual analysis. Then you have to go down to the Academy, then the Colts, Madison Scouts. Over in color guard, once again, the Crossmen looking good. You've got the Bluecoats, 2/10 over Vanguard, and then you go to the Crossmen at 16.1. Fourth place, the Blue Stars. Fifth place, the Cadets. Sixth, the Academy. Seventh, Colts, and eighth, Madison. Overall visual, what does that kind of translate out to? Well, Bluecoats 25.35 in visual, 25 even for Vanguard, so pretty close there. Blue Stars are third, Crossmen fourth, Cadets are fifth in visual. And yes, they're all somewhat close, but the Cadets got to make some of that up if they want to climb up the rankings. So now taking a look at the music caption from Menomonee. Take a look at brass first. So you've got the Bluecoats at the top by 3/10 over Vanguard. You have Vanguard then at 16.4, Cadets at a 15.5. The Cadets are solid in music. Like, if you look at the whole thing, they're 2/3 up on the Blue Stars, and then percussion comes and they're 1.3. That percussion score is really elevating the Cadets right now. The Blue Stars at a 15.1 in brass is actually below the Crossman score of a 15.2. You go down to sixth place then, a 14.5 for the Colts, and then down to Madison, and then back to the Academy, actually, in eighth in brass. I'd say that probably is an accurate portrayal of what I saw last night. In music analysis, everybody goes as is. The Bluecoats are 3/10 up on Vanguard. The Blue Stars do defeat the Crossmen here because their percussion score, the Crossmen's percussion score, is holding them back so much, and that kind of goes over to analysis. Then over in music percussion, Vanguard 17.5, as we've come to see from them, they're amazing in percussion. 17 even for the Bluecoats, that's 5/10. That's half a point behind Santa Clara Vanguard. The Cadets are third, not necessarily their strongest percussion showing, at least on the recap last night. Fourth is the Blue Stars. Fifth in percussion goes to the Colts at 15.1. Crossmen at 14.7. This isn't as bad as it could be for the Crossmen percussion. I was thinking, okay, they're going to be stuck down in like 18th place in percussion. It seems as though they're kind of making that up and might only be stuck in like 14th or 15th. Seventh place in percussion was the Academy, and eighth was Madison. Take a look at the overall music caption. Bluecoats win it by half of a tenth. Very close. Third place to the Cadets. Fourth to the Blue Stars, fifth Crossmen, sixth the Colts at a 22.15, just 3/10 behind the Colts. In music, 21.4 for the Academy and 21.35 for Madison. Overall totals at the show, Bluecoats at 9/10. They keep increasing that margin over Vanguard, a tenth a night pretty much. You look at everybody else here, the only other two big things. The Blue Stars have expanded their lead on the Crossmen from the night before, and the Colts margin over the Academy has shrunk. Two things I want to note, or a few things I want to note with Santa Clara Vanguard and the Bluecoats. Santa Clara Vanguard, I made these notes last night. The transitions between the movements are amazing. If you think that movement before their ballad and then to the ballad, it's just amazing what they're doing, because in that part, it's like, oh, aren't they gonna stop and then resume with the ballad? No, they just keep going. It's not like they're like, there's no stopping in that show, and the energy in that show is just through the roof, night in and night out, and you can tell it on their scores, because as I said, an 84 is not a bad score. It's just the Bluecoats score is higher than theirs is. The Bluecoats, that show is amazing. It really grows on me every time, because the first time I saw this show in Detroit, I'm like, I don't know what to think of this. And then as the season keeps going, I'm like, I like this more and more. The show just, and really one of the reasons for that, there's so many moments, like, you can't look away for a second, and you could say the same thing about Vanguard, it's just constant energy flowing through the roof. It's just amazing what those two are doing this season. So after 3 consecutive shows, at least for most of those corps that have been in the Midwest, they now get a day off. I know many corps are doing free days or rehearsal days. I know the Cavaliers were in Chicago, I believe, yesterday. So, really, this is like the, not middle of the season, but like before the middle of the season, before this next push, basically up until San Antonio, and then that Sunday after, again, when all the corps have that free day again. So really, it's this weekend, then a big push for everybody until San Antonio, and then that push really until the end of the year from there. So the corps that have been in the Pacific Northwest, they now have another show tonight. Drums Along the Columbia in Tri-Cities, Washington. This one will get underway 7 o'clock Pacific time with the Welcome and National Anthem. Same 2 open class scores that have been at these shows, the Columbians and the Battalion in attendance once again. And then the same 5 world class groups, but add in Pacific Crest here. And adding in Pacific Crest, it does make this a little more interesting than we've been seeing it. So you've got the Seattle Cascades, you've got Genesis and Intermission, and then the Troopers, Pacific Crest, Blue Knights, and Blue Devils. What are we looking for here? The Blue Devils, can they go through the roof? Can they get to an 85? That would be amazing if they could get to an 85. I think the judges are still going to be a little conservative with them and say, okay, we're going to keep you down 83, 84. We're not going to shoot you up too high. The Blue Knights, where do they fall in? The Blue Knights are aside from the Blue Devils, these 2 corps, or you really could say, I'm just going to expand this now to everyone at this show, all of the world-class corps, at least these last 4 here, are the biggest wild cards right now, because they have not gone against anyone pretty much except themselves, because they've not been contending with anybody. The Blue Knights, they were ahead of the Mandarins, we know that. Where do the Mandarins fall in? Where do the Blue Knights fall in? Just, there's so many different factors going on with these scores right now, because the Blue Knights are just like, yeah, we have their scores, but where does that fit in with the Crossmen and Blue Stars and Cadets? Like, could they finish 7th? Like, we don't know right now with the Blue Knights. Pacific Crest Troopers. Can Pacific Crest get ahead of the Troopers tonight? Maybe. I like Pacific Crest show more than the Troopers, at least the one time I've seen it so far. The Troopers show is just lacking creativity for me. And then going to that second, or the first half of the show, Genesis, Seattle Cascades, if I'm those 2 corps, I want to get moving. Get the scores up tonight. So, the second show tonight, as I said at the beginning of the show, those corps that have been touring in the Southeast now travel to Valdosta, Georgia for one of Spirit of Atlanta's home show events. Their other one, I believe, happens tomorrow night, yes. Drums Across America, they host. Go on last at this one. So, starting at the top here, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Welcome National Anthem. And then we have 3 open class scores. We've got Heatwave, Southwind, and Louisiana Stars. 3 of 5 open class scores we have still yet to see perform. Shadow, Guardians debut later this week. Shadow Friday, Guardians Saturday. These 3, though, are 3 quarters that don't have a ton to lose this season. Heat Wave, they've been they did not make finals last year in open class, and that's a 12 core field out of 15 cores last year, and they did not make it. So yes, last year was disappointing. Can they get any better this season? Well, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what the score sheet will say tonight for them. Southwind, Louisiana Stars, those two, they have a lot to gain and not a whole lot to lose. Louisiana Stars, they've been working their way up. Can they get into the top 5 this year? Throw away Blue Devils B, throw away Vanguard Cadets. They're in a pretty good spot. Same with Southwind. And those two, they're just working their way up, and I would not be surprised at least one of those two to get top 5 at Open Class Championships come August in Indiana. So, going to the world class part of the event, these are the 5 cores we've been seeing: Jersey Surf, Music City, Phantom Regiment, Carolina Crown, and Spirit of Atlanta, and then Boston has been these events. They're off tonight, though. Big thing to look for here is, can Crown stay consistent with where the Bluecoats and Vanguard are, or at least within a point or two? And this year, I mean, how it's competitively shaking out to be, with everything being top notch and the scores being so close, it's actually odd, because like Crown's down in the southeast, you got the Bluecoats and Vanguard in the Midwest, and you got the Blue Devils totally out in the middle of nowhere in Washington or wherever they happen to be on a daily basis. So really, these cores are spread out all over the place, but the only big battle we can see right now head to head has been the Bluecoats and Vanguard, and then Boston and Crown, but that was only one night that Boston got past Crown. I think because that only happened one night, that's really taken away from what Boston actually did there. Looking down the line here, Phantom's got to defeat Spirit again, and that's really the only big things to watch tonight at this one. Thank you for watching the podcast today. Just a few things. Make sure to visit my website, drumcorpscentral.weebly.com, for all the latest updates from the DCI and DCA summer tours. Scores, schedules, leaderboards, and more can all be found on my own personal website about all things drum corps. Make sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DrumCorpsGeek, and subscribe to the Show Day podcast on YouTube, where this podcast and more will be posted as the season progresses. Finally, leave your thoughts in the comment sections. Questions, inputs, comments, etc. all would be greatly appreciated. So, thank you for watching today. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll be back tomorrow.